You've probably been sold the Mediterranean diet as the golden ticket: eat like an Italian, live to 100, never count calories again. Maybe you bought the olive oil, the expensive kind, $40 a bottle. Maybe you meal prepped chickpea salads and grilled fish. Maybe you even felt virtuous for a few weeks. And then, it didn't work. You didn't lose weight. You didn't feel magical. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you wondered, what's wrong with me? Why does everyone else make this look so easy? But here's the gut punch: you didn't fail when you couldn't make the diet work. The diet failed you. And I can prove it with 3 pieces of evidence. 1. The scientist who invented the Mediterranean diet threw out data from 15 countries because it contradicted his hypothesis. If a pharmaceutical company did that, we'd call it fraud. 2. The International Olive Council, an industry trade group, funded 34 studies on olive oil between 2000 and 2015. Guess how many found olive oil was bad for you? 0. Not because olive oil is perfect. Because they only fund researchers who already believe it is. 3. The Mediterranean diet you bought at Whole Foods, with salmon, quinoa, and avocado, didn't exist in 1960s Italy. You weren't eating the real diet. You were eating California with an Italian accent. This isn't a diet story. This is a con. And it worked on millions of people just like you. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how the Mediterranean diet became a billion-dollar industry, and why the real secret to longevity was never about the food. You'll see the documents. You'll hear the lies. And the next time someone tells you about a miracle diet, you'll know the first question to ask. Who paid for the miracle? Let me tell you about the man who lied to the entire world, and got famous for it. His name was Ancel Keys. And in the 1950s, he had a theory: fat causes heart disease. Simple, elegant, and almost completely wrong. But here's the thing: Keys didn't care if he was wrong. He cared if he was believed. And he was willing to bury mountains of data to make sure he was. So he launched what became the 7-country study. Sounds groundbreaking, right? Except here's the catch: he actually had data from 22 countries. 22. When the results didn't fit his theory, he tossed out 15 of them. Imagine you're playing poker. You deal yourself 22 cards. You pick the 7 that give you a winning hand, shove the other 15 under the table, then slam your hand down and say, "Look, I won fair and square." That wasn't research. That was a magic trick. And the world fell for it. And the kicker? The country that fit his story best, Italy, wasn't even eating what we now call the Mediterranean diet. Here's what rural Italians in the 1960s actually ate: stale bread soaked in olive oil, not drizzled, soaked, because it was too hard to chew otherwise. Beans. Boiled greens. Maybe an onion. Meat once a week if you were lucky. Wine so sour it tasted like vinegar. Dessert? Leftover bread dipped in honey, if there was honey. This wasn't a lifestyle. It was poverty. These families weren't choosing health. They were surviving scarcity. But Keys stripped away the poverty, stripped away the endless walking, the manual labor, the close-knit communities, and he kept just the food. The cheapest, most marketable part. And he branded it as paradise. He didn't discover a diet. He discovered a marketing opportunity. So that was one man's lie. But what happens when billion-dollar industries realize they can profit from it? In the next section, I'll show you the receipts, the documents, the funding, the studies bought and paid for. And the one question you should ask every time you see "heart healthy" on a label: who paid for that claim? So Ancel Keys built the myth in the 1950s. The olive oil industry turned it into marketing gold in the 90s. But the real scandal? That didn't break until 2018. When it did, it revealed something so corrupt it should have killed the Mediterranean diet forever. Spoiler, it didn't even slow it down. In 2013, one of the biggest nutrition studies in history was published in the New England Journal of Medicine, the most prestigious medical journal on earth. It was called PREDIMED, and it claimed to prove, once and for all, that the Mediterranean diet prevents heart attacks and strokes. Doctors cited it. Governments changed dietary guidelines based on it. Olive oil sales spiked 30% in the year after publication. There was just one problem: the data was fabricated. Not all of it, but enough to matter. Investigators discovered that researchers had enrolled married couples and assigned them to the same diet group instead of randomizing them. Entire clinics were given the same assignment, meaning hundreds of participants weren't randomized at all. When this was exposed in 2018, the journal retracted the study. But here's the insane part: 6 months later, they republished it with barely any changes. Same conclusions. Same authors. The only difference? A footnote buried in the appendix admitting to methodological irregularities. Why would they do this? Because the original study had been cited over 2,000 times. Retracting it permanently would have invalidated decades of dietary guidelines, medical advice, and follow-up studies. The institution couldn't afford to admit it had been wrong. So they just pretended the problem was small enough to fix with a footnote. PREDIMED wasn't an isolated case. It's how the entire industry operates. Here's the mechanism. The International Olive Council funds a study, not directly, but routed through universities or foundations to appear independent. Researchers design a trial comparing olive oil to something obviously worse, like margarine or no oil, but with so many confounding variables you can't isolate the effect. Then they publish positive results. The Olive Council promotes the findings. Food companies slap "scientifically proven" on labels. When critics point out flaws, the industry funds 10 more studies to bury the criticism. They didn't bribe scientists to lie. They paid them to design studies that couldn't lose. Think of it like a jury. They didn't corrupt the verdict, they curated the jurors. This researcher selection mechanism guarantees mostly positive outcomes. Between 1997 and 2005, they spent over $200 million on U.S. marketing alone, more than Coca-Cola's ad budget, just to sell the idea that olive oil equals health. And once the olive oil playbook proved profitable, every industry copied it. The wine industry claimed resveratrol prevents aging. A researcher named Deepak Das published over 100 papers supporting it. Wine sales soared, until 2012, when Yukon found he'd fabricated data. Over 100 papers retracted. Career destroyed. But here's what didn't get retracted: the marketing. Walk into any wine shop today and you'll still see heart-healthy labels based on debunked research. The lesson? Even when you get caught, belief outlives evidence. So that's how the machine works: fund the believers, design studies that can't lose, bury dissenters, market the myth. The Mediterranean diet didn't spread because it was healthy. It spread because it was profitable. But here's the twist: the diet actually did work for some people. Just not for the reason they sold you. In the next section, I'll reveal what Mediterranean people were actually doing that made them healthy, and it has nothing to do with olive oil. The real secret was never on your plate. So if olive oil wasn't the miracle, what was? The answer is so simple, and so unprofitable, that the food industry spent $200 million making sure you'd never hear it. You can't bottle it, patent it, or charge $40 for it. You can't sell the real secret. And that's why they sold you everything else instead. 1960s Mediterranean people stayed healthy because they walked. Everywhere. Daily. Not exercise, walking to markets, visiting neighbors, tending gardens. 3 to 5 miles without thinking about it. Modern studies show 3 20-minute walks per day, after breakfast, lunch, and dinner, regulate blood sugar better than a single 60-minute gym session. Your body doesn't want intensity. It wants consistency. Low-intensity movement even reduces inflammation more effectively than many medications. But gyms sell memberships. Supplement companies sell pills. No one profits from "just walk after every meal." So they buried it. Second, minimal chronic stress. Number 90-minute commutes. No midnight emails. No doom scrolling at 2 a.m. Predictable routines, predictable people. Work, eat, socialize, sleep. Science shows chronic stress destroys gut bacteria, spikes cortisol, triggers inflammation, and increases heart disease risk more than saturated fat ever could. The marketing ignored this because you can't bottle less stress. Third, social bonds. Meals lasted hours. Multiple generations lived together. Neighbors knew each other's families. Loneliness is now classified as a health risk equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes per day. Social isolation increases mortality by 29%. The Mediterranean advantage wasn't the food. It was eating together. Community doesn't fit on a label. You can't sell it. So the industry stripped it out, photographed the food, and sold you an empty plate. Compare sold versus actual. Sold, $40 olive oil, organic quinoa, wild salmon, red wine supplements. Factual, walk 3 to 5 miles daily, free, eat with family, free, low-stress routines, free, strong social networks, free. Everything that actually mattered was free. Everything sold was profitable, not effective. The Mediterranean diet didn't fail by accident. It was designed to sell, not to work. But here's the good news: now that you know what actually worked, movement, community, low stress, you can build the real thing yourself. For free. In the final section, I'll give you a 1-week experiment, the real Mediterranean lifestyle, minus the marketing. Walk daily. Eat with others. Sleep on a rhythm. I'm betting you'll lose weight, not from the food, but from finally living the way humans were designed to live. You know the scam, Ancel Keys cherry-picked data. Olive oil marketing cost $200 million. PREDIMED was republished anyway. But one thing they couldn't fake, the lifestyle that actually worked. 1 week. You and me. No supplements, no $40 olive oil, just the behaviors that made 1960s Mediterraneans outlive everyone else. Day 1 to 7, 3 rules. 1. Walk 20 minutes after every meal. Not fast, steady. Regulates blood sugar better than any drug. 2. Eat at least 1 meal daily with someone, no phones, real conversation. Reduces cortisol and inflammation. 3. Sleep awake at the same time every day. Body needs rhythm, not flexibility. No meal plan, no calorie counting. Just movement, connection, routine. By day 7, expect 1 to 3 pounds lost, not from restriction, but consistent movement. Energy stabilizes. Mood improves. Sleep deepens. Junk food cravings decrease, body stops panic signaling for quick energy. Companies can't sell this, it's free, effective, undeniable. Track 3 things. Weight day 1 versus day 7. How you feel on day 3, the hardest day. Whether you want to continue afterward. Then comment your results below. I'll read every one. I bet half of you will say, better than any diet I tried. We don't have a food problem, we have a lifestyle problem. Sitting 12 hours a day, eating alone, sleeping erratically. Industries sold solutions for what was never broken. The real secret? Walking, talking, sleeping, living. If you made it to the end, comment 8%. Then take a 20-minute walk and reflect. The next time someone sells a miracle diet, ask, who paid for the miracle?